Hi, this is Jim Rosas and Marie Hale, and we're excited to talk about best practices for executive level networking. Most importantly, around the executive luncheons that we are hosting, where we are breaking bread and building business. As I mentioned, it's Jim Rosas and Marie Hale, co-founders of @Revenue, and we're going to be handing off a little bit as we go through this presentation for everybody. I can't encourage you enough how important it is to listen to this, take advantage of the information. Our goal is for you to come back to both Marie and I and say how much this has been effective for growing your business, growing relationships, obviously most importantly making some money, because that's what we're all here to do. So what we're going to cover today, finding the right people. Let's make sure we get the right people in the room. How do we pitch them when we're in the room? And pitch is a relative word, but how are we communicating effectively to get the best results for them and us? And then, of course, the follow-up. This is oftentimes where people get tripped up in maximizing their networking effectively. And then lastly, how do we connect people the right way? How do we ask for the right connections, and how do we give the right connections? So let's jump right into this. First of all, identifying high-level connections to invite and how to invite them properly. You're all in this group because we believe you have high-level networking relationships. So I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. But how do we invite them to our event, I think, is most important. As you can see, Marie put a very nice hashtag on this. It's a big deal. I think that's the #1 key to effectively inviting people, really to any event that you're hosting. But this one in particular, make it a big deal. You're doing them a favor. They're not doing you a favor by coming. You're doing them a favor, because this is an invitation-only event. The people in the room are awesome. They're proven networkers. It's a professional but welcoming and relaxed environment. And they're going to meet business owners and generous connectors. I think this is very important to impress upon people. Also, keep in mind that great people to invite to this are prospects that you want to impress and help, as well as clients that you want to add value to. The goal here is not a leads group in the traditional sense of doing business across the table. Listen, if people do business across the table, that's wonderful and that's an added value. But the event itself is designed as a networking group. So you need to be looking at inviting those people that are going to look 2 and 3 levels deep into their network for you, and folks that you want to do the same for on their behalf. So as you're inviting people, make sure that you're asking the right people the right way. Make it a big deal. For our event in Chicago, for instance, we've got free parking. It's very convenient off the highway. It's very close to the red line, however you want to position it. And I also encourage you to do a little bit of a takeaway when you are inviting people. And in sales, that saying means take the opportunity away a little bit. Make it a big deal in the sense that, listen, if you're not as excited about this as I am, tell me now and I'll find a different guest. If people go, well, it's not really convenient for me to get to, hey, no problem. Listen, you know what? I can invite you again in 3 or 4 months if that's a better time for you, and I'll find another person. Let them know, again, invitation only, limited capacity, amazing people in the room, and that it's really in their best interest to come and to really participate. And once we have a couple of these lunches under our belt, you'll all not just need to say this, you'll intuitively know it, because you'll be seeing the tremendous results that are coming from it. If there's any questions about this, or really if there's any questions about anything at all, please make sure you're reaching out to Jim and Marie.
One thing I also want to encourage you to do is, instead of just shooting somebody an email and saying, hey, I've got this great event coming, ask them face-to-face. Again, make it a big deal. And we're going to send you some great templates for that follow-up email that you can send to someone to make sure that we're getting their name on the list, so we can make sure that there's no competition in the room as much as possible, that they've got the correct, directions and location and parking and all of that good information. But make that ask one-on-one, make it personal, and it'll make it a lot more exciting for the recipient.
Yeah, it's a great point. If you're in front of somebody, obviously that communication is going to be far more effective. In fact, I encourage you to not ever just invite somebody via email. Call them. If you can't get face-to-face, call them. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. We want to talk about that pitch and crafting an effective elevator speech. In the room, we're going to have about 3 minutes each person to talk about our business. And I want you to maximize that time for yourself. So here's some tips that I've been coaching on for many, many years on crafting a strong elevator pitch. And here's how we do it. There's 4 components to an effective way of communicating who we are, what we do, and why someone wants to do business with us. The first is the identifier. Take just a couple of sentences. Who you are, what you do, and why us. Why should we do business with you? Keep it very, very clean, very, very simple. Then you want to move into the second box, which is the motivators. You want to give people a reason to want to listen and engage and ultimately do business with you. People are motivated in 3 primary ways: pain, fear, and gain. Those are in the correct order as well. People are more highly motivated by pain than anything else. Yet a lot of people go into networking events preaching gain. We're better, we're faster, we're stronger, we've been around longer, we're smarter, we're taller, whatever it might be. Yet most people are not motivated to make change strictly on gain. If people are unhappy, frustrated, anxious, that's when they make decisions to move and do something different. If they're in fear, oh my goodness, my lease is up, what am I going to do? I need to find something in the next 60 days. Guess what? They're highly motivated to do something. So think about that. And you want to give most consideration to pain statements. What is it that people are afraid of? So for instance, in the group that we have right now in the North Chicago, there's a technology person, Joanna. People might be overwhelmed by their technology, distracted, frustrated, confused. Those are all things that are real in business owners' minds, pains and fears that might motivate them to want to experience what Joanna does. Realtors, I mean, there's 1,000 realtors out there, right? Well, what sets you apart? You know, you want a realtor who's engaged, not just looking at comps. You've heard horror stories around dealing with trying to find either commercial or residential properties. There's inattentive agents out there, people who let things go by the wayside. Those are all pains, real pains and fears that people have around doing business with folks like that. And I can help each and every one of you with pain and fear statements about your business if you'd like my assistance with that. The next is the 4th component, solve the problem. If you're saying that people are oftentimes confused, overwhelmed, and frustrated with their technology, solve the problem. We take you by the hand. We walk you through it. We take it off your plate. We handle it 100%. Whatever that reason is for them to do business with you. And if you can give 1 to 2 examples of how you do that, real examples, people can then relate to that. I worked with company A who was frustrated and overwhelmed with what the cloud is. What does that even mean? We were able to both explain and serve them by taking their technology off-site and taking it out of their hands, giving them the opportunity to focus on their core business. It's a great example of how we could help someone. The 4th component is the ask and the close. What are you looking for? So many times people end their elevator pitch just simply with, and that's who I am, and that's what I do. Ask for what you want. These are the types of clients I'm looking to connect with. Business owners over $5 million who are in this space. I'm looking for strategic partners like, etc., etc. Ask very specifically. And I think something, too, that's kind of lost along the way sometimes is asking for things in the networking environment that may not be apparent. You know, I need to find somebody who's going to help me with, with my HR for my small business. But you know what else I need? I need somebody who can wash the windows of my brother-in-law's business. He can't find anybody. Does anybody have someone? Just those off-the-cuff asks oftentimes create greater opportunity to network, greater opportunity to serve your needs and for others' needs to be served. In fact, I could give you a real quick story. I was facilitating a networking group in Highland Park years ago, and somebody brought up they needed a tree trimmer. There were trees hanging over their power lines on their residential property. The city was ignoring them. They were frustrated. Guess what? I had a tree trimmer in my network. I was able to help them. They were very, very excited about that. So keep in mind those asks that make you real and that may not be something that's as apparent as you would think that they would be.
And I'd like to add on to that, a really great way to build relationships is to allow others to be of service to you. How many times have you had a friendship where it feels all one-sided because one person is always taking care of the other person, and the relationship doesn't quite go as far as it could because the other person doesn't have a chance to help? A really great way to do that is, if you don't have an immediate need that you need to spend money on, find a business friend. Find somebody in that room that's at a similar level of business and say, hey, I would love to be able to give you a call when I need to think through something. Or please call me if you're ever having a moment where something feels so big that you just can't get started. I'm really good at providing clarity in those situations. An opportunity to build a deep relationship is going to foster tremendous, tremendous networks for you because you'll be top of mind with the other person.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. And again, please, 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 if any of you have greater questions, want to get into greater detail, by all means, contact Maria or I, and we're more than happy to walk you through this. We're going to move into some follow-up steps and how to do that effectively. And Maria, you want to talk more about that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we hear over and over again in networking is, I've had a million coffees, and not only am I shaken like a chihuahua by 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I'm on my 8th cup, but I'm not really getting any business done. Lots of nice people, not a lot of revenue. And the reason that happens is because we say yes to everything, and we don't have parameters on what to say no to because we want to be nice to the people that we're connecting with in a networking environment. So I'm going to provide you with some steps to be really nice to people, to make sure that you're meeting with the right people that are going to bring value to you and that you can bring value to, and that you can nicely say no when people are not a good fit for a greater amount of your time. As business owners, time is the biggest commodity that we have, and we've got the least of it. So we want to make sure that you're effectively using it. The very first thing that I encourage you to do when you're developing a new relationship, whether it's somebody who's chasing you down because they want to hand you money right then and there, or they say, hey, we have a great synergy in the types of clients that we work with, let's go have lunch. Gee, I would love to have lunch with you, but let's do this. Why don't we start with a 15-minute phone call, and let's talk a little bit about our businesses. And if it makes sense for us to schedule some more time and sit down face-to-face, then by all means we can do that. There's a couple of benefits to this. One, it's a little bit of a takeaway sale. It's saying to the person who's approaching you, I am all for connecting with you, but my calendar is robust. I can't possibly get you on the calendar for the next couple of weeks, but I want to make sure that I don't lose track of you. So let's start now. Let's find at least 15 minutes for one another. The other part of that is it gives you an opportunity to see what their follow-up is like. Do they show up for the meeting on time? Do they make sure that everything is well communicated so that you can get on the phone quickly and move things forward? But it also gives you an opportunity to ask them some pretty serious questions, like, tell me more about how you connect with new clients. Tell me a little bit more about the specifics of your client demographics. Do you have any good strategic partners that you already work with? As you start getting more and more into this process, you'll develop questions that make sense for your own business, but make sure that you're asking and receiving high-quality questions and high-quality answers. And then see if they ask about you. The last thing you want to do is go spend your networking time and dollars with somebody who is not interested in your business. And hopefully in that initial 15-minute phone call, you'll be able to assess that pretty clearly. And if it's not a good fit, you can be honest with them. And Jim is great at this. He does a great job of providing softening statements when you have to be real honest with somebody. Can you give us a couple of those examples?
I could. Before I do, though, let me just qualify one thing. When we're in the room and somebody says, I want to get together with you, and your heart of heart knows you want to get together with them, go ahead and book it. Pull out your calendars, book the time. Maybe it's only 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour, but I can't tell you how many appointments I've booked right out of these rooms that have resulted in revenue. So I agree with Maria 100% that if I'm following up with guests from the room, 99% of the time, it starts with, hey, you know what? I'll give you a call in the next day or so. Let's spend 15 or 20 minutes together, and then let's kind of take it from there. But listen, guys, we've all been networking long enough to know that we know when it feels right, book the time. Just it most certainly will pay off for you to do that. I think a good softening statement when you're not ready to book the time and you want to have a little bit of space, maybe do a little bit of research first and then follow up with them, is just letting them know, you know what, I'd love to book an opportunity with you right now. If you don't mind, is it okay if I reach out to you a little later in the day to do that? I've got to get going, or there's a few other people I have to connect with as well. Are you okay with that? It's permission-based. It's soft and nurturing, and people typically, listen, people, they'll go, yeah, no problem, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever the case might be. So just softening it up is going to help you a lot in feeling comfortable with doing that.
What if we have to say, Jim, at the end of the conversation, you know what, you're a really nice person, but I don't think this is a good fit for us to schedule the next step?
Are you talking about after a phone call?
After the 15-minute
Yeah,
phone call.
absolutely. I think, and this is a great tip for everybody, be honest. Be honest. If you know you can't help this person, let them know that. And if you don't like them, you don't have to let them know you don't like them, but you can let them know that you're not interested in moving forward. And over the years, I found a couple of very effective ways of doing that. One is if I can't help somebody, on the front end of the 15-minute call, I'll let somebody know, you know what? I already have a wonderful HR company that I work with, that I refer business to, that I'm friends with, and I want to be honest with you, I can't imagine that I'll be able to refer much business to you. Are there other ways that you see we might be able to help each other? So it lets them know that you're already connected with somebody in their industry, but you're also not closing the door entirely. You're asking if there's other ways to connect. So on the front end of the call, you can most certainly do that. And on the back end of the call, I think it's really good. Typically, both parties feel the same way, but not always. But I think, again, it's about being transparent with people. You know, Tom, at the end of this call, I'm not necessarily feeling or seeing the ways that we're going to be able to help each other. I want to be super respectful of your calendar and mine. Is there a reason for us to get together, or should we just say, hey, it was really nice to meet you, and move on from there? Again, most smart business people appreciate that. They respect it, and they'll say, you know what, Jim, you're absolutely right. It was nice to meet you. It was a great lunch. I really enjoyed it. You know what, maybe we'll cross paths down the road, or maybe we'll find other ways to help each other. And that just saved me a commute, an hour, a commute back, money, frustration, anxiety, whatever else it might have cost me had I not just ambushed it right there and put it out of its misery. Having said that, sometimes we get together with people, and we need to say that at the end of the hour, and there's other ways to address it as well that way. But Marie, anything else?
No, I think that's a great way to get in and out of that conversation gracefully. Once you do move on to the one-on-one conversation, you really want to walk into that appointment with the intention of quantifying how you're going to work together and scheduling concrete next steps with that person. So one of the biggest things that I look for when I'm sitting down with somebody who's truly interested in being a networking partner is, are they prepared to take notes? Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't met many people with a completely photographic memory. So if we're going to be diving deep on our businesses, I would expect that they're going to want to find some way to remember what I do and what kind of clients I'm looking for and some of the information that we're sharing back and forth. So setting a good agenda when you sit down and looking for clues as you start to build this relationship is a great way to quantify whether or not this person is going to be worth your time as a strategic networking partner. And this is, you guys know how to identify your clients. We don't need to give you that information, but I'm talking about somebody that you're going to build a long-term relationship with and hopefully refer business back and forth with for years. So as I sit down to that conversation, I set an agenda. Hey, Jim, it's nice to meet you. I'm really excited about this conversation. I want to be respectful of both of our time. And we've got an hour set aside. We've been chatting for about 10 minutes, but I want to make sure you get out of here on time. Is it okay with you if I set a little agenda? Because I really want to find out a lot more about your business. I want to talk about what kind of clients you work with more deeply. And I want to find out how you build business so that we can see how we build it together. What would you like to find out today? And then Jim tells me that what he wants to find out. And I say, great. So is it okay if I say that, at the end of this conversation, if it still seems like a good fit, we can walk away with some really good next steps and put those in our calendar and agree to move forward on them? I guarantee you the answer is always yes. Nobody wants to sit there and waste time making friends in business that won't have a purpose for follow-up. So make sure that you're constantly
Actually, let me interrupt you for a second. There are knuckleheads out there. There's definitely people that will do that to you. And by setting the agenda, what it does is it really kind of eliminates the possibility of them doing that. So I think, just be aware that this tool is going to be a powerful one to eliminate those knuckleheads. And I can tell you, too, Marie and I have both experienced it where we've got that hour set aside and it ends at 30 minutes. Because of that very fact. So what Marie's telling you is right on the money.
And the other thing that you want to look for is, as you're going into it, if you know what the breakdown of the meeting is. I'm going to tell you about my business, you're going to tell me about yours, and then we're going to figure out how to work together. If you're 30 minutes in and they still haven't asked you about your business and they've been talking about themselves the entire time, you have a really good idea of what their intention is for how this relationship is going to go. And there has been many a time that I've been able to close my notebook and say, hey, I have to say, we've been here for almost our entire time, and you really haven't shown any interest in what it is that I do, and I simply don't do business that way. It was really nice to meet you, but I don't think this is going to be a good partnership fit for me. And it's a little shocking the first time, and it's a little scary the first time, but I got to tell you, the couple of people that I've had to close my book on, either one ended up building tremendous respect for me and following up with me later with much better intentions and usually leads, but two, they were so embarrassed that they never did that in another networking relationship again. It gave them a lot of clarity about what it really is to network like a grown-up. So as you end this conversation, the next steps are critical. And they're not only critical to set when you're face-to-face with the person, but it gives you an opportunity to watch how they follow up on those. Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they make the kinds of connections that they say they're going to make? One of the tools that we're also going to provide you is a great template for helping people introduce you to their network. 100% the greatest deterrent or reason to procrastinate on making an introduction is just not knowing how to do it well. Not knowing what to say to one person about the other person, and being very, very clear about how that follow-up should happen, and even giving them the words to say is going to increase your amount of referrals and the speed with which you get them. So we've gone through the meeting, we've had our follow-up steps, we've had a great chance to connect and move things forward. You're going to get a really good idea of who's here to play ball. And typically when I'm putting together a strategic partner strategy for one of my clients, we have a spreadsheet that we put our partners through, and we see who's providing leads, who's providing connections. Is it a client? Is it a speaking engagement that you're bringing me in on? Have you offered to cross-promote my blogs? Anything that they can do to help you all has value. And every 6 months, we can take a look at those strategic partnerships, identify our top 3, and take them out to a really nice meal. Build the relationships with those people. I would rather see you spend marketing dollars on the few people that send you lots and lots of business than on going out and developing leads that may or may not turn into one-off sales. So qualify them, quantify them, follow up on those next steps, and nurture the relationships that are going to provide you with great ROI.
I'll add one other thing about setting appointments for coffees. Marie started that with going out for 8 coffees and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you feel like you might not have gotten anything accomplished. I always like to let people know, again, setting the agenda as Marie described, and if it's a lunch, if I'm going to go out for instance, yesterday I was at a breakfast and a lunch. I want to set the stage for what the expectations are. And I oftentimes let people know, you know what, let's just go Dutch. So when the check comes, neither one of us have that weird moment of who's going to pick it up. Okay, can we agree on that? And everybody chuckles and goes, that's a great idea. Nobody ever does it. But how much money, and I really do challenge you to think about this, how much money have you thrown away because you picked up the check that maybe you shouldn't have. You picked up a check too early in a relationship instead of waiting, as Marie suggested, that you have the good relationship, and now you're taking them to Mastro's because it's worth it. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to ask that. When I set an agenda for networking, I set it very, very specifically. Marie, I look forward to spending that hour with you. What I'd really like to do to make the best use of that time is let's just break it in half. Let's spend about 30 minutes each getting to know each other, understanding each other's business, making sure that we're really understanding how we can connect each other. How does that sound to you? The answer is always going to be, yeah, that sounds great. I look forward to it. Great. My only expectation then at the end of the hour is that if we are both willing and able to help each other, let's set specific next steps on how we're going to do that. Here are the people we want to connect each other to, and here's the timeline to do that. Does that sound effective to you? Yes, it does. Great. I look forward to seeing you. And oh, hey, by the way, Marie, you know what? I don't know about you, but I go on a lot of coffees. Let's just agree it's Dutch. You get your coffee, I'll get my coffee, and this way there's not anything weird. We don't feel uncomfortable at that moment. Okay? Great. Wonderful. See you later. It always works. No one has ever, over a dozen years, no one has ever pushed back on that. So I encourage you to use it. All right. Now let's talk about giving those introductions. You've met someone at the lunch. You've spent a couple of minutes on the phone. You connected. You've spent an hour with them. You really like them. You can see how you can help them, and they can see how they can help you. And now it's time to make those connections. So let's say I'm looking to make a connection to someone in the room. Let's say to Lori, and it's somebody who really needs some passport services for their business. They go in and out of the country. They have multiple employees that do that, and I know that Lori can help them. And they really need to meet with Lori, and they need to meet with Lori fast. How do you make that connection? How do you do a high-quality introduction? First, confirm with both parties that the introduction makes sense. Now, in the scenario I'm giving you, it's going to make sense. But there's a lot of scenarios where it might not make sense. I know Bill Himmelstein enough that if I call Bill and say, hey, Bill, I want to introduce you to a banker, he's going to go, dude, I don't think so. Not right now. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But if I just haphazardly sent that lead to Bill, it starts to diminish the value of my relationship with him and the quality of the introductions that I give to him. As well as it sets the other person up for disappointment, because guess what? Bill's not really going to be excited to get together necessarily for that meeting. The situation with Lori is going to be very, very different. She's going to be excited. But I want to confirm with both parties that the introduction is warranted. So I might come out of that meeting, we'll go to the Lori situation. I might come out of that meeting with, let's call him Bob, and I'll call Lori and say, Lori, I met this guy, Bob, really nice guy. He has some needs that you can help meet. Are you open to that introduction? Yes, I am. Okay, great. So I'm going to now set the stage. Lori, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to include you and Bob on that email. But I'm going to put the ball in Bob's court to call you, okay? Great. Now, Lori might say to me, you know what, I'd rather call Bob because I'm super busy, and if he needs something right away, I'd rather take care of him right away. That might be your answer. That's okay, too. But you want to set the stage first. Now, craft the introduction properly. So I told Bob that I'm going to introduce him to Lori. I told Lori I'm going to introduce him to Bob. I've told both of them that I'm going to do it through an email introduction with each other's contact information. So you craft a powerful message, and I encourage you to start with the receiving party. Lori, let me introduce you to Bob. You and I just spoke about him. I mentioned what his needs are. He's looking forward to connecting with you. Bob is in the ABC business, and he's really excited about the opportunity of networking with you. Here's Bob's contact information. Boom. Second paragraph. Bob, let me introduce you to Lori. As I mentioned, Lori does A, B, C, and D. You'd mentioned that that was something you needed right now. Here's Lori's contact information. Bob, I mentioned to Lori that you would be reaching out to her, and I know I mentioned to you that you should initiate. I encourage you to do that right away. Happy networking. Keep me informed. Let me know. Boom. That's it. Nice and simple. But those types of introductions are going to get a lot more response, a lot quicker response, and a much more effective response than just a blind, hey, I met a guy, you might be able to do business together. So I think it's very important to do that. It's the who, the how, and the why. What are you looking at? Who it is, how you met, and why you're connecting them. Okay? Those are typically the best way to do an email introduction. If you want to take it even a step further, a in-face quality introduction is one of the most powerful. And I'll give you an example. I had an attorney who was a client of mine years ago, a young lady by the name of Marites. Marites was extremely happy with the growth of her practice and was sharing with another attorney who she went to law school with, Rima, about her interactions with me and the experience that she was having. Rima wanted to meet me, so what Marites did was she called me while she was sitting there with Rima and said, Jim, I want to introduce you to Rima. When is a good time the three of us can get together? Powerful. Got together, the three of us, at Marites' office, and by the end of that meeting, Marites had told Rima all about the work we did together, about the impact it had on her practice, about the fact that she not only wanted to introduce, but she was recommending. And guess what? I closed that business almost immediately. You can do the exact same thing, and that's just one example of many that I can give you. So if it's not an email, an in-person introduction is very, very powerful. Marie, anything you want to add to that?
Powerful next steps. Make sure that you follow up on those introductions. We were talking about really identifying who your good partners are. Part of that is if you make an introduction for them, how do they follow up? So I have some tests that I will put out there, and if I'm not sure about how somebody networks, or I'm a little uneasy about the quality of their follow-up, I have ringers. I have ringers that I use in my personal network that I will call them and say, hey, Jim, I'm going to introduce you to somebody. It's my first time referring them out. Can you let me know how that goes for you? And I'll tell you what, if I hear back that the person didn't follow up, they didn't say what they were going to do, or it just kind of fell apart, I'm real hesitant to make any more quality introductions for that person, because at that point, my reputation is on the line. And let me tell you how fiercely I protect my reputation. It's a great way for you to quantify those relationships, invest good time and dollars in good professionals, and truly be a successful networker.
It's a great point. Now, some of you might have sat through this and thought, boy, those guys are hard asses. You wouldn't be the first to think that or the first to say that. However, what I will say is that there are techniques to all of this. We're giving you very straightforward direction, very straightforward recommendations. As Marie said, we're happy to work with you on templates and work with you on messaging. I'm not going to be supplying you with that, but if you want to work on it, I'm more than happy to coach you through it. Complimentary, because you're my friends, because you're networking partners with me. I'm more than happy to help you with that. Just let us know what help you need so that we can be effective for you. Again, just to kind of end where we started, our goal is for this event and all events that you do through Ad Revenue are the best events that you've ever had, that give you the best ROI on your time and dollar, and that you have nothing but rave reviews to tell the entire world about Ad Revenue and about the networking that you're involved with and about the powerful impact it's had on your business, on your family, on your network, on whatever it is, it's going to be impacted by your increase in revenue. So please continue to let us know how we can help, and we look forward to seeing you soon.